in helping these kids to get what we feel they need to make them good students.
Exactly, and good citizens.
Good citizens,
Yeah.
good Americans, good people in the world, you know.
Right.
Because there are too many kids that's falling through the cracks. That fall for things that's not as wholesome for them.
Exactly.
And we feel that music is wholesome for you. You know, if a kid can begin to appreciate this music more, and begin to think about being more green, you know, environmental issues, you know, recycling.
So all this sort of kind of runs hand in hand.
It's a whole, it's a whole thing there, you know, and being wholesome is what it's all about.
Okay. I want to get very quickly back to what we had started talking about was the series, again, the National Endowment for the Arts has put together that talks a little bit about the history, actually a lot about the history of jazz. And it incorporates performances, it incorporates interviews from a lot of the jazz masters. And we're going to show just a teeny tiny bit of it. And for people that maybe had seen the show a couple of years ago, they saw much more of it.
Yes.
And maybe, you know, in the next few weeks we'll be able to bring our guests or our audience more of it. But before we look at this little clip of what people can see, and again, it's a series, it's a DVD and a CD, and it truly does go through the history of jazz.
Yes. And
I think by looking at the whole series and listening to the CD, again, we can get a better appreciation for the impact that this form of music has made on the way we live our lives now, because a lot of people don't realize that. Again, a lot of what we hear and see now has its roots in jazz.
Absolutely.
And we don't, and particularly young people, you know, when you're talking about rap, for instance, they listen to the rap, but then I think if they listen to some of these jazz artists from back in the you know, the late 1800s and the early 1900s, they will hear elements of that in what they're listening to now.
Yes, like Louis Armstrong,
exactly.
He used to do this thing, right? But really, American history is just history, okay? So you can relate back to what happened in America in technology, in social issues, education. It all has to connect with music as well, you know. So this stuff is good for you, good for anybody to experience.
Exactly,
you know?
not just young people, but us old people as well.
Absolutely right. And you go on the website, it's www.nea.org, I think, the website.
And that's how people can, they can find out how to get their own copy of this, right?
Right, you can download it, right. And they want it in the schools more so.
Good.
And my concern is that they might send it out to the schools, but not necessarily the schools doing it with it, you know. So here in Huntsville, we try to make sure that the schools do use the material.
Good.
Because
it's readily available. So
right,
again,
it's free too. It's free.
Exactly, it's free. Because I know we talk about budget cuts, so you know what better deal to get a really good, well packaged history of music and jazz, and it has the study material, so it gives you how to incorporate it into the classroom.
Right,
it's free.
Right. Plus, I think if a kid, when anybody know their history more so, they have more pride in themselves.
Exactly.
And more pride in the country, you know, because you see what it takes to build this country and build
kind
the
of where we
music
came
up.
from.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I think if the kid, because when I was a young person, I had to take history as serious as I do now. So I understand what it's all about. So we try to make sure that the kids can make history more palatable to them.
Exactly. And again, make them more appreciative. Make them more appreciative of the world that we live in now.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because the struggles always can be here with us, you know.
Right.
But you can enjoy in the struggle if you have we're framing things,
Exactly.
you know. And so I appreciate the NEA doing what they're doing, but it's going to take people like us,
to promote it,
grassroots.
to continue to promote it.
Right, grassroots. You know, I know the school system need help.
Exactly.
And so the school system can't do it by themselves.
Right.
And it takes people like the Jazz Society, and it takes the Boys and Girls Club, and it takes all other kind of arts agencies and
groups,
non-NGOs to help out as possible.
And with that being said, we're going to take a look at just a little snippet of this whole series. Now, what's the name of it again?
It's called Jazz in the Schools.
Okay.
Now, my program is called Jazz History in Schools.
Right.
Okay? But theirs is called Jazz in the Schools.
Okay. So we're going to take a snippet of this historical look at jazz.
If you listen, you can hear American history. You can even dance to it. It's jazz. And it's as full of soul and promise as the great country that gave birth to it. Jazz is all about democracy, individuals coming together, exchanging traditions, and adopting new ideas to create new harmonies and new expressions of freedom like the world it never heard before. Jazz is more than America's music. Jazz is America.
I don't think it's possible to study social history in the United States without recognizing jazz as one of the central phenomena.
Jazz is an absolutely critical part of American history. It's actually, well, obviously it's an art form that was created here in the United States, and I think that it's an art form that could have only been created here in the United States.
This is music that came up out of a necessity for survival, and so it speaks about humanity in a very deep way. Some of the things that are most beautiful come out of some of the most horrible things.
Jazz grew out of the African American community at the turn of the 20th century, a time when blacks were being denied their most basic rights.
So in the case of the Afro-American, of course, it's natural that they would bring the American message that would be objectified in an art form because they were the ones who were denied freedom the most. When you're treated unjust, when you're treated with that level of degradation and you're abused to that level, your concept of freedom would be much greater. It's like to a blind person, seeing is something much more magnificent than a person who can see.
So Howard, we just saw, again, just a little snippet of the Jazz in Schools program that the National Endowment for the Arts has put together. But it sort of kind of leads us or continues us into the conversation about just how important it is that music and the arts, that they continue to be incorporated into the school systems, into what kids are being exposed to, because so many kids are being exposed to music, but the wrong kind of music.
Absolutely,
and I'm sorry,
right.
there is, you know, I have to disagree with you a little bit. There is bad music out there. Unfortunately, there is bad music, and not so much because of any kind of instrumentation or the performances, but just the message that music promotes.
Well, it's not it's not just music itself; it's that culture.
Yeah.
I call it,
it's that whole culture. You're right.
Right,
It is a
and I'm
culture.
not putting down, but you don't find almost no class in young people anymore. I mean, sorry.
Well, there are some young people because I mean,
Some people have
you've brought
some class.
you've brought
You're
some young
absolutely
jazz
right, yes.
musicians on, so there are some
I'm
young
sorry,
people
yes,
that.
yes.
But you said, but I understand what you're saying. As a culture and as a generation,
That culture,
a lot
right.
of that has been taken away.
Right, they
and
don't
I think it's because of just the simple kind of basic things that we were exposed to when we were young. Kids now are not being exposed to.
Well, that culture don't respect authority. I'm gonna say it. You know, they don't respect the parents at home. They don't respect the teachers in most cases. Cause I've been in schools too, okay, and I say firsthand, and which shocks me. Cause if my mom said it once,
That
it's
was
done,
yeah.
right? But and they dress as if it's no consequences. And the music, so I'm not putting down the music, but is that culture within the culture that we got to work on here.
So that's even more more reason why we have to continue to promote other avenues
Absolutely.
and other options for them.
That's right, Jenny.
Yeah.
Right. Give us, it's our fault if kids don't get the things that they need, because
Right.
we're the adults, right? So that's why we do what we do, and so if our society is going down the tubes, as some people say this, it's our fault.
Exactly.
And the kids' fault, so I'm glad that we're here trying to do something to help out.
And this is the community's responsibility to make sure that our kids are exposed to what they need to be exposed to. Because
Absolutely
you don't
right.
have a child in Huntsville City school system, and neither do I. And I was talking to Laura McCauley, who's a member of the Huntsville City Board of Education,
Yes.
a couple, 3 weeks ago. We were talking about the fact that it is so important that this entire community embrace our educational system, because at some point or another, it's going to impact all of us.
That's right.
Because we are educating. Right now, we are educating and we are producing our future administrators, doctors, lawyers, presidents.
Absolutely.
And if they don't get the right foundation now, look at what we're going to have in the future.
That's right, but see, you got to understand. I love America, but sometimes we get to be selfish about. I got mine, and you get your own.
Yeah.
Okay,